Ooh, we could cold open. You don't want cold open with 4 people? With 4 people, it's not really so much a cold open. It's a lukewarm open. So it's a hot open because it's so awesome. So snuggly warm.
Snugglies. Bonfires, apple ciders, and...
I bought 10 gallons of apple cider. I love
How much
it
do you have
so
left?
much. I love it so much. I want. You know what? I feel triggered by your question right now. That was a bad tone to take with the question that you just asked me.
All of it. I drank all of it.
There was derision. Shawn, there's 2 left. There's 2 gallons left. There's been 8 gallons of apple cider that disappeared in this house over the course of a week.
Is that your scary story? You're going to be like, what happens when you open the fridge and there's no apple cider?
Yeah, and then there's a hook on the handle of the fridge.
Or, yeah, it's somebody dumping it out going,
that sounds blasphemous. I'd watch an exorcism before I saw somebody do that. All right. Gonna start the show. Now remember, the object of the show is to make sure that Shawn doesn't sleep. That is always the object of spooky story time.
So I was in a hotel once when we did this, and every one of Richard's stories was about bad things happening in a hotel.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of bromance. No, it's not bromance. It's scary mance. That's what we're calling it.
Richard.
Scare the shit out of Shawn Day.
Yes, for the 8th time ever, we're doing Brolloween. And Richard, we have 2 of my favorite people in the whole wide world that know all things scary and spooky. We have my former co-host from Strange Indeed, still running strong with Strange Indeed, I might add, Miss Rima.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yay.
And we also have somebody who knows a lot about zombies and all other creepy things. Kind of one of the inspirations for me to get into podcasting, so it's always awesome to have him on. We have Jason from the Walking Dead cast and Podcastica.
Brains.
So I just want to say thank you guys very much for jumping on. It's my favorite time of year. There's always a bunch of scary shows on TV. And like I said, it's our Brolloween special where we like to find things that spook the crap out of each other and see how, well, like Richard said, try to scare me the most. But kind of the theme for this year's Brolloween is kind of no sleep. So I'll pick randomly and I'll let you start off with what you would like to start for this episode.
Well, thank you, Shawn. Gosh, trying to pick a couple of stories for this episode was, I'll admit, quite challenging because it's usually my anxiety that keeps me up at night. But there is something that I thought I would share, and I might have shared it previously when we were podcasting previously on Strange and Geeks. We talk about a lot of scary things. And one of the stories, whenever I was little, I used to stay at my grandparents' house a lot. And they lived out in the woods, surrounded by woods, very rural area. Across the street from my grandmother's house was a huge, just nothing but woods, right? Very creepy. And I remember being sleeping in bed at night and looking at, out the window, and it was just like completely dark. And my uncle would always tell me a story of how the boogeyman was out there in the woods and was come and snatch me out of bed at night. And I used to lay awake all night long.
That's
thinking
nice.
About that. Yeah, and I learned as I got older that it was a little abusive, I guess. But it was like that's kind of what.
That's how you keep them in bed. That's how you keep them in bed.
Yeah, I guess it was a
Or
way
have
of,
them
like,
running down the
making sure
street.
Yes, but like giving me a lifelong anxiety over that because I still think about that to this day. And there used to be, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of like foxes screaming in the woods and how they sound like they can scream like women or like little kids. There would be like foxes across the road and they would scream. And I thought that the boogeyman was like out there killing people. So it's going to come for me too.
Oh my God.
So I've just been petrified of that. And I still think about it to this day and always think that something get me from underneath my bed like that. That was one of my earliest stories that I can think of that used to always keep me up at night. And
you were just laying there as a little girl hearing screams and thinking it was the boogeyman killing people somewhere in the neighborhood?
yes,
Damn.
yes, I did.
Did you ever? Because like when I was a kid, I had like a super over like powered imagination. So like I remember looking at pictures at night because I was kind of scared of the dark. And even though there were pictures of me or my family, I could see the mouths moving. Yeah, and it's just like you just stare at it like and like you blink and kind of like try to refocus. Like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? And then heads would start to move. Because you're probably in like Richard calls it the land of nod, where you're like you're half asleep, half awake.
Yeah.
But it's I mean like being scared of like the woods and the dark is like that's a fear that like humans have like evolved to have, right? Like I always think about to the story of like Beowulf. I remember hearing about that story. Like there's this big scary monster out in the woods at night. And, it's a story that was passed down for years. And it probably could have just been like a bear or some kind of like creature like that. But, darkness and just being out there and like the unknown, like your imagination just makes it out to be, I mean, I guess a bear is pretty bad, but, makes it 10 times worse than what you could ever think of.
Yeah, you're right. A bear is kind of enough, actually, but I get where you're coming from.
I mean, some bears, like, if it's a black bear, you might be like, hey, bear, and it might run off.
No.
But if it's a grizzly bear and you're like, hey, bear, it's like, hey, there's my next meal.
But yeah.
Do you really take the time to figure it out? You're like, is that a black bear or a grizzly bear? Black bear, chomp. Oh, that was a grizzly bear.
Play dead, play dead. I've actually never experienced any face-to-face with a bear, so I've lucked out on that one.
I'm wondering, so did you think that did the boogeyman live in the woods or did he live? Because I always had this thing, there was always something like under your bed. So like every kid does that thing where they do the running,
Yes.
yeah, the running jump into their bed. Yeah, I did that a lot when I was little because I was constantly afraid there was something under my bed.
I'm not kidding. I still do that. I mean, there wasn't a full explanation. There wasn't like a whole backstory of the boogeyman or anything like that. But it was definitely
Which makes it worse, to be honest.
The unknown, you're right, Shawn. If you don't know, then it's scarier.
Yeah, but it was
because then you fill in the blanks yourself, and it makes it even more terrible.
Is like way worse than anything that someone could like tell you, right? So and I had a very vivid imagination. And of course, I grew up on scary movies. I've said this multiple times on the podcast. Since I was little, so you see these things in movies, and so it's a movie, but I don't know, could something be real? And when you've got like an adult, that you think you can trust anyway. Apparently I couldn't, but you think that you can trust them. And they're telling you there's this boogeyman out there in the woods. He comes out at night, and if I don't go to sleep or stay in bed, then he pushes me away. And I could swear, like sometimes I would get brave enough to like kind of open the curtains or something to like look outside if I thought I heard something, outside in the bushes or something. And how the light can play tricks and you think you see something and it's not there. So I would just be a mess. I would be up all hours. So I don't know. I guess, yes, he just kind of lived out there and came out in the dark. And those are things that, definitely kept me up at night. Maybe not so much now, but I still watch enough scary things that I'm closing my blinds at night. Like I'm watching Midnight Mass right now. It's where I won't say anything to spoil anyone, but there's a particular scene that just really I think my soul left my body after I saw it, and I just went around like shutting all my blinds and like, couldn't see anything. And then I also like you Rich, I do have a tendency to think that there are things under my bed. Poltergeist. I mean, come on.
Yep.
That
Pet Cemetery.
Yeah.
Pet Cemetery was the worst because there was something under the bed, and it was a kid with the creepiest smile on the face of the earth, and he had with a scalpel.
I want to play.
That was on that was like on Leprechaun 3 too. He was hiding under there with a scalpel and slit some dude's Achilles heel.
Yeah.
See, I was a kid of the 90s, so I had a waterbed, which didn't have any space underneath. But I had the pleasure of seeing Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's like, oh, you're safe. And then like the waterbed would move just in the right way. And you're like, I'm going to die.
There was some movie recently. I didn't see it, but I saw a clip. because I think what horror directors love to do is I'm going to make everyone scared to go in the water, with Jaws or whatever. And one safe place that we all have is under the covers. You jump on top of the bed, you're under the covers, cover up as much of yourself as you can. Like I would literally cover every part of my body except my mouth. Just my mouth would be sticking through. But I think there was some movie where like they look under the covers and something comes up at them from underneath the covers.
Oh, I think I know what I can't remember the name of it either, but I think I know what you're talking
Sarah
about.
Michelle Gellar where she there's like the haunted in the house type thing. Like
The Grudge?
The Grudge,
I think
they did that in that movie.
Yeah, that was messed up.
Yeah.
That's mean.
Yeah. But what earlier you were talking about the whole like less is more and like your imagination filling in the blanks. Best example for me that I've seen in a movie, and I've probably said this before, is Frankenstein. In the original Frankenstein, there's a scene where the monster is walking through the woods and he finds this little girl and she's like picking the petals off flowers and throwing them in the lake. And so the monster walks up and he starts like picking the petals off flowers and throwing them in the water.
Is this the one when he walks up? He's like, "Hey, I'm Robert De Niro," and she's like, "Ah!"
They're picking flowers and they're throwing them in the lake, and then they run out of petals. They run out of petals in the flowers. So then you just see the monster like pick up the little girl, and she's like, "Hey, no, don't do that!" And then the camera like pans away to the water, and then scene ends, and I'm like, and then the next scene is the girl's dead, and I'm like, what? There is nothing that you could have shown me on that screen that is more terrifying than the scenario that I just dreamed up in my head.
Well, I mean, I think also it's that our brains are wired to pay attention to something until you know it's safe, and then you can understand it, categorize it, label it, file it away. Like cats, they can hear the same loud sound all the time and it won't bother them. But if there's a new sound, they're like, "What the fuck is that?" And people are like that too. So for me, the scariest movies, there's some movies that I notice a lot of people don't think are that scary, but the ones who do think it's really scary are like Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, because you don't see the thing. It's all off screen and you don't really understand or know what it is. And so for me, it's not like my imagination is going crazy, like dreaming up what that is. It's just like, I don't know what it is. And that just creates this sense of dread in me. Like I can't file it away. I can't categorize it. It's just like this evil presence,
Well, like Blair Witch is a great example because I just recently heard this fan theory I've never heard of. So like everybody who's ever seen Blair Witch thinks like, oh my gosh, there's like this wicked witch out in the woods that, took over these kids and like tortured them and killed them all, right? And like you think like, oh my gosh, supernatural, that's freaky enough as is. But somebody said like, well, their fan theory is that the two guys actually were luring her out in the woods to kill her. So now you're putting this whole like human, like more realism to it that makes it even more creepy, because like supernatural, you can be like, oh, that's not real. Like, witches don't really exist kind of thing. But then if somebody's like, oh, no, it was actually like a murder type scenario, like a real life thing. You're like, oh, that's really fucked up. And then you start rewatching that and like, oh, well, now I have to worry about this. Thanks.
I watched that and then like I'd be home even in the middle of the day and I just feel like the presence of the Blair Witch. I'd be home alone and I'd start getting freaked out. And I never had that with any other horror movie before. And then I was riding a motorcycle at the time and I rode up to my friend's place and he lived out in the woods. And it was night and I didn't know quite how to get to his place. And I missed the turn and I had to like back up. And as I was kind of going around the turn, my bike fell over and the light turned off. And I'm in the middle of the woods with the light turned. I'm like, yeah, fuck, trying to get the damn thing up.
Well, the worst thing is like, with that too, is like when you start coming home and there's those stick figures all over the place, like this new place, it's all over. Yeah. We've got to like figure out like a new, like one closet full of them. It's ridiculous. Like I understand like, hey, you're trying to freak me out, but come on, like, can you do something more productive?
A ring of salt.
Bags of tea. Yeah. It's like...
ring of salt around the house. Yeah, I agree. Those movies scared the hell out of me. Probably Paranormal Activity scared the hell out of me, especially because we would go camping a lot at the time that movie had come out. Very dark, and a friend of ours went and made one of those like wooden stick figures, and we were all out on one part camping and hiking, and it was at night, and he's off like saying he's going to go do something else, and he goes and hangs that up on our hiking trail. And so we're walking around with just flashlights. We're just hiking around out in the woods in the middle of the night. It's completely dark, creepy as hell. And then, he's like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" And we all just like lose our
That's
minds.
awesome.
And yeah,
you should appreciate that guy for going to all the trouble of doing that.
Yeah,
Really good.
She murdered that friend, and his body is still in
we are
those
still
woods.
friends today. I haven't disowned him. We are still friends. Yeah, he was pretty good at pranks like that and loved scaring the hell out of you like that. So yeah, that definitely got me. And yeah, with paranormal activity, I remember just being around the house, even in broad daylight, and just feeling like something is like right behind you, and just be like, wait, feel like,
because that's what that movie did. Shit happened during the day.
yeah,
And you're
it
like, oh,
wasn't
there's
like-
no escape.
Yeah, didn't have to be in the middle of the night.
There's a new one of those on the
No
horizon.
kidding.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
I think it's a reboot or
and
a refresh.
Yeah, kind of. And I think they've decided to involve like creepy kids and Amish.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. No, I've seen the trailer for that. No,
yeah.
is that Blair Witch or is that something
Paranormal
different?
Activity.
No,
Was that one of those?
It's Paranormal Activity.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were still on Blair Witch. I was, because I was just thinking about the last scene. Because when I was, I remember like they put out like this documentary right when that came out, because I would have been like 12 or 13 when this came out. My mom and dad decided it'd be a great idea to take me to see this in the theaters.
Oh my God.
And I remember like this was the first like big found footage movie too, right?
Yeah.
And I remember Discovery had like this documentary, and like other places were talking about it. They're like, oh my God, like there's these kids that were like missing and they found this footage. And I'm like, why are we watching this movie and not looking for these kids? Like I thought it was real the whole time. And like I thought I witnessed like a snuff film. Like I thought I saw somebody die on screen, and everybody's like, hey, movie of the year.
My friend turned to me and asked me if it was real, but we were 27 at the time. But he thought it was real too.
That was,
I think I was
great
like
marketing.
16. I was like 17, I think, when that movie came out. My wife, then girlfriend, immediately went camping after seeing the movie. Like we went and saw the movie, and then she was with her friends, and so then she left to go camping. And then in the middle of the night, left the camp, left everything there, and just went to like a Steak and Shake and spent like the better part of that evening under the soft glow of the Steak and Shake neon sign.
Nice.
It's like, what's safer, a tent in the middle of the woods after seeing Blair Witch, or a Steak and Shake at 2 a.m?
Hey, 3-way chili.
Ooh. Good stuff.
Well, that's a good spooky story, and it sits well because, like we talked about, where I am, I'm surrounded by woods now.
Yeah,
So
I fear for you just a little bit, Shawn.
so like I said before we jumped on, I thought I heard a bobcat behind our house, and we listened to some of the sounds that bobcats make, and it's the same thing, kind of like a fox. It sounds like a dying
Yes,
human
they
being.
scream.
So I bet that's what I'll hear tonight. So thanks, Rima.
You are
I appreciate
so
that.
welcome. I'm glad that I can pass along a little bit of my dysfunction. And share that with the world. But yes, your bobcats do the same thing too. So I mean, it could have been a bobcat, but I assumed it was a fox. But yeah, bobcats will scream too, and
And boogeymen too.
Yep.
And people. Yep. That's people. People
Children.
do that. It was people.
You know,
it was
your
people
uncle
the whole
could have been
time.
like really bad too. He could have put like a scarecrow out there and like a Michael Myers mask on it with like
Yeah.
a little bit of
I
reflective light.
never
That's
would
what my
have remembered.
stepdad had, this little like Indian doll, and he would put it in different places around the house and pretend he didn't know how it got there. And
No.
it freaked me out.
No,
It's
I-
fucked up, man.
That would definitely traumatize me. There's a movie, and I know lots of people. I feel like some people didn't know it when I would talk about it growing up, but I feel like now that as an adult and I talk about it, people are like, "Oh yeah, I know that movie, Trilogy of Terror." One of the stories had that creepy little doll that came alive and
Yep.
had like this little knife and was chasing that woman around her apartment. That movie traumatized the
Yeah.
shit out of me. I think I was like 4 or 5 when I saw it at my cousin's house, and so dolls really scare the hell out of me.
Or Magic. Did you ever see that? With one of those puppets that ventriloquists use. It was Anthony Hopkins as the ventriloquist, but the puppet kind of was alive. It was back in the 70s, so it was
don't
probably
think I've
before
seen
all you
that.
guys' time. It's a good one.
I don't think I went.
No, I got Chucky.
I
so.
vaguely I remember the title, but I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. So I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, the whole that would scare the life out of me if someone had done that. Like having a little doll and moving it around.
Well, we do that now. We just call it Elf on a Shelf.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
See,
right.
that is why I would never. I mean, my daughter. I don't think that was around when my daughter was younger. But no, there would never have been an Elf on the Shelf in this house at all. We don't do dolls here. Absolutely not. That's creepy.
There's no dolls in the house.
I hadn't thought about it before, but I do think that little Indian doll is why I haven't done that with my kids. It was in my subconscious mind not to fuck them up.
You move it you move it one night and then you have a little too much to drink and you wake up, you're like, wait a minute, did I put it there? Or
Did I
put
What
it
is
there?
it doing there, and why does it have a knife?
No.
We don't have any peanut butter. That was a good start to this. So, Jason, I guess I'll cue you up for the next story.
Okay, well, mine is a true one, and it's probably one that you guys all know, but because it was a documentary on HBO. What was it called? The Something in the Night. It's about the Golden State Killer.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and-
Was this the Patton Oswalt's
Yeah.
wife?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
he in the 70s, he was a cop. He was a burglary unit police officer. So he knew all the ins and outs of breaking into places without getting caught. And he would go case out people's homes ahead of time and like cut their phone lines, and then break in while they were sleeping. And he'd tie couples up, and then he would have the husband in the other room and like stack dishes on the guy's back. And then he would say, if I hear these dishes crash down, you're dead. I'm going to kill you all. And then he would fucking rape the wife. It's horrible. He actually did this shit. And then he'd sometimes kill him anyway. And that all happened in the 70s, and he was caught just like a few years ago, 40 years later, as a 78-year-old man or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
why I bring that up is because I think about that, pretty much that in particular, but sometimes when I'm laying in bed and if I'm home alone, because Jenny works really late sometimes, I'll just be there in the pitch black and think I hear noise or something, like your house creaks or whatever. And I'm like, dude, somebody like that could just be standing in the room with me right now, or right over there in the closet or something, and what would I do? And that actually creeps me out, those kind of thoughts, like somebody just breaking in.
Well, and there was.
Have you ever had those like sorry.
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry. Just for reference, it's called "I'll Be Gone in the Dark." It's the documentary on HBO. So if you guys are interested, it really is very fascinating and pretty, like Jason said, pretty damn scary and terrible, the things that he did. But I was just going to say there was a serial killer, and I have to look up his name because I totally forgot, that would break into people's homes, but he would do it by, like, he would go up to your door, and if your door was unlocked, he would see it as an invitation. If your door was locked, then he would just go on and like leave you alone. So it was like a, make sure you lock your damn door kind of thing. But that's how he thought of it. It was like, hey, door's unlocked. That means they want me to come in. So yeah, just.
I mean, I was just trying to think what actually creeps me out at night, and that's pretty much the only thing, thinking that someone is in my house that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, because I think the victims, the ones that survived would describe, that he would just be like standing over top of you and like put his hand over your mouth, and like you would just be, because it'd be like in the middle of the night, that he'd come in most of the times.
You're nothing but vulnerable.
And there was one where I think he did everything, had his way with the woman, and then the woman and her daughter, I think, were still in the room on the bed with their faces down. And then they thought he left and it was quiet, but his daughter could see that he was still standing there for like 15 minutes, just still watching them. And then the mom would start to say something and the daughter would be like, "Be quiet, mom," And it's like, dude, what is wrong with this guy? Like, what would possess someone to do that?
Well, and that's the thing with like, for I don't know, my mom was always really like, there was this like big serial killer craze like in the mid 90s. Because I think that was like shortly after Dahmer was put to death, and like a lot of the ones from like the 70s and 80s were starting to get caught or go to jail or starting to learn about them. So she watched these serial killer documentaries all the time. And just like you think, like there's like 5 or 10 people can think of off the top of their head, right? And I think right now we're in a spot where like you don't hear about any of that stuff. And I think a lot of us have that sense of like, oh, well, it must have just stopped, right? Like we don't have any more serial killers in the United States or anywhere. And I think the statistic that kind of blew me away, I don't know the exact number, but it's like 5 to 8 serial killers are active at all, like all times, according to like, and it's just like, what the?
I'm pretty sure that number's a little higher. Active serial killers.
It might be.
I think it's a little higher too. Also, that don't they all hail from like the same general area, like around the Pacific Northwest, or a lot of them have come from the Pacific
something
Northwest?
Going on up there. Shawn, it feels like there's a little bit of interference. Are you guys hearing it when Shawn talks? Like a fuzziness?
A little.
Yeah, I
little.
just thought I'd bring it up in case there was anything you could do, but go on. Sorry.
Tiffany might be.
It's like
the bad thing about where I'm
static.
at now, the internet's not very good.
Okay. So,
I mean, unless the serial killer
Yeah.
cut the lines.
If it goes dark there while we're watching you on screen there, Shawn.
if one of us,
What are you talking about?
if one of us gets killed while we're doing this, I think the podcast could really go viral.
I
agree.
totally
Good
agree.
point. Yep.
I think that would
Do
be
good things for you guys.
the like best podcast ever and the most amount of downloads.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's make a pact. Post the Skype video.
No matter what.
Yep.
Whoever's
right
left,
away.
post the Skype video.
Post the
And
Skype video, then dial
what
911.
Shawn used to do to me all the
in
time.
that order.
We would podcast, and we'd be on video, and we'd be sitting there chatting and talking about whatever show or episode, and Shawn would be like, "Oh, you mean like that thing that's like standing right behind you right now?" And I'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like, it scared the hell out of me.
It's
Always-
dark out there.
always thinking that-
What's behind you?
Shut up.
I was gonna say you're the only one that has like kind of a dark, like the lights aren't on behind you. All the rest of us are in very well lit rooms because we know what's going to happen.
Well, that's the room she has the guy who tried to scare him.
And you're like throwing caution to the wind. You're like, whatever, let it be a darkened room.
Fine.
It's fine.
I live in the dark, so I have heightened senses, so I'm all good. I have dogs. That's all that I need, or just dogs will alert me.
Yeah, either they're going to bark at nothing and scare the crap out of you. You're like, there better be somebody in the house.
Trying to sleep.
But like, so Jason, you're talking about that story and like, just like the mentality of like these people to do these depraved things. And again, I brought up like, well, we don't hear anything about serial killers or those kinds of events happening as much. But recently I actually heard a story about something very creepy like that, like within 3 hours from my house. So the story goes that there was this, the FBI got alerted that there's this missing girl, and so let me see if I can get this right without trying to give too much, because it's still an under investigation type thing. Like it's very much in its infancy. But so this girl was kidnapped, and they went and interviewed this guy who lives like 3 hours south of me or whatever. And, they interviewed him, and he's like, yeah, the girl was here. She was up in the attic because she was trying to get back on her feet or whatever. And they looked around. They saw like it was like nothing out of the ordinary besides like, yeah, somebody was here. They got some type of anonymous mail or whatever it is, but it was basically that girl in a cage, partially clothed. And they kind of identified that it was like, oh, well, that's that guy's house. So they got a warrant, went back, found it on his phone, arrested him. But all these stories started coming out from like the neighbors is like, yeah, there's been a lot of rumors about like stuff happening at this guy's house, like rumors of him being like a cannibal. Apparently when the cop showed up, he was eating like this sandwich that they're not sure what it was. In his like freezer, he had bags with like initials on it and dates. And this hasn't been, I don't know how much this is true or not, but apparently he was saying he had neighbors over for ribs.
Oh, he's like a collector.
Yummy.
And so, yeah, so he got arrested. They kind of kept all this quiet. They arrested 2 guys because apparently one guy helped him get people there, get this girl there. They haven't found the girl yet. And you're like, well, this is really weird. About a week and a half after he was arrested, the cops were kind of casing out his place. And I'm not for sure if they found a tripwire or they hit the tripwire or something like that, but they ended up causing his house burnt to the ground.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you have all this going on, and you're like, well, this story is getting weirder. And apparently, the week after all this, they were talking about how the girl's mom's been missing or was missing, and they found her kind of spread out all over the place in some field. So again, like you think of the unnerving stuff like in the past, and you're like, oh, thank God that's all gone. There's still freaking nutty people out there.
You haven't heard about a cannibal for a long time.
They're kind of
like Dahmer was really the last cannibal, right?
That's been made public.
I mean, I presume that it's just humanity that for every, I don't know, million people born, there's going to be one whose brain isn't wired correctly and wants to eat human flesh. And that will probably
it's like the Targaryen
keep
rule.
Going, yeah, for forever. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if like it's just like you talk about like cannibalism stuff. Like, what would possess somebody to want to like eat human flesh, like to get like some kind of enjoyment out of that?
Yeah, it feels like a lot of that stuff is power dynamics. You know, it's about like this guy that I mentioned, Joseph D'Angelo, the Golden State Killer. You just get the sense that he had this urge to dominate people.
So I know that you'd mentioned that Patton Oswalt's wife was the one that kind of helped. Did she help uncover it, or she just report on it, or like what happened there towards the end? She was
obsessed with gathering facts, and she wrote a book about it. And watching the documentary, it was a lot about her and a lot about the Golden State Killer. But to be honest, in the end, I didn't even get the sense that her work was that crucial in capturing the guy. It was some DNA thing. Maybe she like instigated more like investigation or something, but
yeah, I think she died before she could finish the book. So Patton Oswalt, I think, took her research and then finished the book based on her stuff. So
a lot of the stuff that she uncovered, though, I don't know that they would have been able to do it without her. A lot of the things that she uncovered and a lot of the things that her collaboration with a lot of other like online detectives, you've got so many folks that are obsessed with like true crime and, looking at, being able to look at the case with like a fresh set of eyes and being able to look at different details.
Just putting media attention on it after the authorities have written it off. Yeah. And then it gets more.
Especially like, 30, 40 years after the fact.
Well, and so like somebody like that too, like I kind of have a hard time to believe that like he actually stopped too. Maybe he slowed down, but did they talk anymore like when he actually kind of stopped doing it? Or?
There was one time where he somebody fought back and it was a big guy and beat him and he ran away. He got away, but there were no killings for 5 years after that. So people speculate that it freaked him out. But then what does Dexter call it? The dark passenger just got too strong and he had to do it again. But people speculate that he just got too old and was afraid that he wouldn't be able to physically do the things they needed to do to get away with it. But nobody knows for sure why he stopped, because it was decades between the last known murder and when he was caught. Now, maybe he actually did more and they just didn't associate it with him. But he had kids and a wife the whole time he was doing this, and the kids had no idea. One of his kids was like, he was the best dad ever.
And that's why they go to jail instead of going to an asylum, because they stop and then do it again. It's not, it's not it's not so much a compulsion, because
you can tell they can control
they can
it.
Stop.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like for all the craziness that Jeffrey Dahmer was, the one thing that kind of sunk him when it came to an insanity defense was at one point someone escaped the house and ran into the police. So the police are driving, and then a naked guy like runs up on their car. And they're like, what the hell is this? So the cops get out. They're trying to talk to this naked guy who is, completely out of his head. Jeffrey Dahmer comes up to these two cops and says that they're lovers and that they just got done having a fight. Mm-hmm. And so that's why he ran off. And so the cops like send this guy back into the house.
Yes.
And as soon as the door closes, Jeffrey Dahmer strangles this guy because so that's what kind of sunk him is if he was really crazy, then he wouldn't have evaded. He wouldn't have been so evasive with the police.
He wouldn't have had like the capability to.
He wouldn't have gone, he wouldn't have thought to himself, I need to, put on my face because otherwise, if I don't, then I'm going to get caught. It's the fear of getting caught always sinks the insanity defense. Who was it? The son of Sam Berkowitz. Like he was killing people willy-nilly. And he thought his dog was the Archangel Michael. With him, it seemed like it was more of a compulsion, and so I think Berkowitz is really the only like bigger named serial killer that ended up in a mental institution rather than prison, because Dahmer went to prison.
So have you guys seen like the Ted Bundy tapes and that's on Netflix?
I haven't seen that. I'm curious about it though.
I have not. No.
It's very unsettling. Like when you're listening, like you said, like, well, first off, like the part where you said like he had a family, like, could you imagine how you would live with yourself knowing that your dad did all these things?
Yeah.
And then like listen to just like the Ted Bundy, like it sounds like a normal human being just talking. And then what he talks about just shivers down your spine, just the way that he,
quintessential sociopath.
Yeah.
With him, like he was good looking and charming. And a lawyer or something, and it's like, wow, that is so crazy that a guy like that would. It's a perfect kind of a guy to get away with stuff because you'd never suspect it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I wonder if like nowadays, like we just mentioned the stat of like how many people they think are still kind of doing these types of crimes, but. Is it like back then they talked about Ted Bundy, like the reason he got away with it is because he kept crossing state lines and they didn't share information.
Right.
But, is it more difficult now so that they catch people quicker, or is it?
Well, a lot of the people Bundy picked up were like hitchhikers and whatnot, right? Like usually it was people like on the fringes of society.
Not necessarily.
Pretend like he needed help with something, getting something in his trunk.
He act like he had a broken arm or something.
Yeah.
Or he had crutches. He murdered girls in a sorority. One of his last in Florida. One of his last. Where he just, I think, really was just losing it. I mean, I feel like he's pretty far gone doing what he's doing, but he really kind of went on this rampage in a sorority and killed several girls in a sorority while others were sleeping. And
then he got marriage proposals while he was in prison, and he actually married one of them.
That's like Marilyn. Was it
freaking
Manson?
Negan.
Charles Manson, same thing.
Yeah. It'd be funny not funny, but interesting if one of us ended up being a serial killer and we found out later. After all of this,
like I did a podcast with that guy.
He was playing it off like he thought there was something wrong with it.
I mean, that's true. Rima's like, hey, you guys all should come to my house and do the podcast.
Female serial killers, but they are there.
They happen. That was that Charlize Theron movie, right? Wasn't she a
monster,
serial killer?
That's an awkward movie to watch with your girlfriend's parents.
Yeah. Female serial killers usually kill like family members and stuff though, right? Like male serial killers will go out and, like, oh, I hurt my arm. Can you help me? And can you help me with this thing, getting this thing in my trunk? But like female serial killers are, always like, come here, nephew Tommy, here, eat this candy or,
It's because
whatever.
Women are like family
there's another
centered,
husband dead.
Right. Well, then you think of like the women that like kill their husbands. They call them like the Black Widows. They kill all their husbands.
Yeah.
And and I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of logic there. I don't know, but I get it.
Well, I think we figured it out. I think we figured out the 1 and 4.
I told Bob if he farted in the bed one more time.
It's like the thing that keeps Shawn up is wondering if Rima's going to come over and kill him.
I look out my window tonight and Rima's just standing out there waving. Holding a microphone.
It's strange indeed.
Watch out.
Well, Richard, I guess we've kind of got a good serial killer talk. We got some good woods talk. What do you got for your story?
I have a story about a brother who thought he saw a ghost when he was a kid, and then later found out it was a bit different. Okay. So this story is told from a true story as far as I know. It's this kid. He said he was 7 years old. His brother was about 10, and it was past their bedtime. Mom woke up off the couch to put them to bed. Dad worked construction out of town, so it was just them in the house. My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper, and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on the way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. The past few nights I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try and scare me, or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in her car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little, sharing stories about Max's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors, when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" That really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about, and she looked equally surprised if she just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night I woke up hearing noises outside my window, and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom." She went on to describe how turning the lights caused him to take off running and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall white male, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, short dark hair, etc., etc.
So he was in the house.
So the kid thought he saw a ghost, but it wasn't a ghost. It was some creeper that was hanging out in the house.
And the family
that's like
lied about it to not freak him out.
And like the kid tells the mom's like, "Oh yeah, my younger brother, your younger son saw that guy in the house." Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's like the. Have you guys ever heard the urban legend of the babysitters talking about this kid complaining about this clown statue creeping him out, and the parents call to check on him? It's like, "Yeah, are you okay if I go ahead and move that clown statue upstairs? Your son's really kind of scared by it." And they're like, "We don't have a clown statue."
God. Fucking clowns.
Yeah, I'm not. I love Pennywise. I love it, but yeah, clowns in general.
Apparently, the clown scare is the reason you do not see Ronald McDonald anymore.
Oh,
that after the whole, it was like 2015, 16.
Yeah. What happened to the clowns that were just hanging around neighborhoods?
Yeah. Well, because of that whole thing, McDonald's kind of slowly phased out Ronald McDonald.
Because of
That's
what?
why you don't see him anymore.
Oh my gosh. You never heard all those
Do you remember the
clown stories?
Yeah, the clown
I mean, I
craze
know
were like,
over time it's just become in our culture. Like when I was a kid or even younger, clowns were at birthday parties to surprise and delight little kids. But these days, pretty much everyone agrees they're creepy. But I don't know if there's was there some what did something happen to bring that about?
There was like a craze a few years ago. Like I want to say around 2015, 2016, there was this craze of kids or people that would just put on clown outfits and wander around neighborhoods in the middle of the night.
Yeah, 2016 is when it happened.
And
okay.
They would hang out near forests or schools, and sometimes they would just kind of stand there. Like they wouldn't even really do anything, but they would just stand there, and that was enough to be creepy. But yeah, there were pictures of them all over the place, and I just thought, I'm telling you, if one shows up in front of me, he's getting hammer punch to the balls.
Exactly. I'd be afraid to do that. We used to, like, me and my buddy would joke, instead of like a full moon with werewolves, if it was a half moon, it was like were-clowns, and then you'd be like, oh my God, oh.
Oh no, check my nose.
Where did these shoes come from? Oh God.
There's an Eli
I've
Roth.
got to get in a car with 30 of my closest friends.
Right away.
Oh, I can't stop making these balloon animals.
You want a giraffe?
There was an Eli Roth movie called like Clown or something like that, where this dude put on like either a nose or something, and he started slowly turning into this evil clown.
Yeah. That is why you do not see Ronald McDonald on television anymore, or in general anymore. You don't see Ronald McDonald at all.
Right. I guess it was October 2016. They decided that he would keep a lower profile.
Yeah.
Based on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if McDonald's had Michael Jackson as their mascot, they'd probably change it at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Subway with, oh, wait.
Is he still?
Yeah.
No,
he's in jail. He's getting a different kind
that
of
would take some guts to keep him as the mascot anyway.
The balls on Subway.
Hey, he lost the weight.
Audacity. Well, I think, who was, going back to serial killers, I think it was the serial killer that was a clown. I think that's what
John
kind of
Wayne
like
Gacy.
started.
Oh, yeah.
Gacy, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, John Wayne Gacy. I think that's what kind of started the whole like, I don't know how I feel about clowns. I don't know how I feel about that anymore.
I bet it was, even though people who are creeped out don't even know that it started out with that. Something like that could just permeate the culture, and people don't remember where it started.
Well, and Gacy's the creepy one because they found like a ton of stuff under his house, and he was a construction worker, so he had a bunch of places in Chicago that he poured concrete and stuff.
Yeah,
and that was like 3 or 4 years ago. They had this place that he had built, and a lot of people were like, "Man," because they wanted to tear it down or renovate it, and there's a little bit of nervousness about like, "Oh, what are we going to find if we do that?"
Killed a bunch of people, buried them in his basement, and then started throwing people, like dumping people like in nearby woods and stuff like that, because he ran out of room in the basement.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
It's being practical.
Isn't Rima? Didn't you move recently?
Yes.
Bigger place.
Yes.
Wait a minute. It's all coming together. Is there a clown nose on that desk?
You will not find any clown paraphernalia anywhere within 1,000 feet of me. I don't do clowns. I've been scared of clowns since I was like 5 or 6 years old, and that was before I knew about John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, the only like real life experience I had with a clown, I was coming home from work one day, and I lived next to some like duplexes and stuff in my first home. And like when I drove by, there was a dude outside like wearing full on like clown mask, like one of the rubber ones. I don't know if he was drinking or smoking a cigar or what it was, but like it was close enough to my house that whenever I turned on my back porch, like I was expecting him just to be hanging out there. Like that was the one time I should have called 911 and be like, I don't think he's doing anything wrong, but he freaked the shit out of me.
I don't know where it is, but I don't like it.
No way.
Well, I guess kind of for my ending, kind of talking about like me being in a new home and things like that. I'm kind of curious how you guys deal with this. There's a lot of weird sounds coming from my crawl space. No,
Like laughter. It's
A lot of honking and circus music. I don't know what that's about.
That'd be so disturbing.
we all float down here.
Yeah. It's like when you're an adult, though. It's like, hey, come down here. We have candy. It's like, listen, you know what? I'm tired of adulting. I'm in. Take me Pennywise.
Like Hershey Kisses, or
What
what
kind?
are you talking here?
So, like, you know, I've moved to a few new places, and like this house that I live in now, you know, out in the country, it was built in like the early 90s, so it's not like super old. So I'm guessing that there hasn't been a lot of weird stuff that's happened here. But whenever, I'm curious, like that I know of. Yeah. Whenever you guys move into new places, do you have kind of like a paranormal / like looking for like some weird poltergeist-esque type scenarios to happen in like X number of days?
I mean, this isn't exactly that, but my place was built in 1941, and the family that moved in, the mother was named Constance. Forgot her last name, but she was here until just a few years before we bought the place. She died, I think, here. Seriously. And when I talk about it, I feel weird, but it's
like
okay.
right there. She's where you're at, or
like, yeah, right in the spot. And then her daughter rented the place out for a few years and then decided she just wanted to sell it. So I don't believe in that kind of stuff, but yet still I'm like, whenever I mention it, I like to have a little nice thought, like, oh, she's so nice, you know, just to kind of have good vibes about the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I always cleanse my house whenever I move into a new place. I always cleanse the house. It's always like there's sage, like you run,
burn the sage.
Yeah, you run a sage through the house, and you know.
I do the same thing except with an Ouija board.
Shawn, what have I? Have you learned nothing at all?
Don't with the Ouija board. Stop.
I'm like, does Richard really like me?
Stop.
Keeps going to no.
No.
Something's wrong with this thing.
Oh my god.
It must be broken.
No, I don't mess. I've never touched an Ouija board in my life. One, because I've always been kind of skeptical, but then two, Richard's told me his story that's freaked the crap out of me.
Ouija boards are terrible.
I did it with friends in high school, and it was pretty creepy.
Yeah, it's. I think we could exchange stories, Richard.
Either.
It's not great.
I tried to throw one away, and then it ended up back in the house, and I don't know how that happened.
I mean, with ours, it was moving and spelling shit, and either we were doing it because I don't believe in that stuff, but there's three possibilities as far as I can tell. Either we were doing it subconsciously, or one of us was pretending and moving it, but pretending to be surprised, or there's a freaking ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So all three of you used the Ouija board. I have not.
No.
So that's kind of interesting. So Rima, what's your story, if you don't mind sharing? Because I'm kind of curious about those, more as a cautionary tale than anything.
Well, I have a couple of stories, and there's a few that I won't talk about because I refuse. I feel like if I talk about it, it's going to bring something back in my life that I had to kind of get rid of.
I get it.
Yeah.
I
like
100% get
I feel
that.
like everyone else is looking at me like, oh my God, Rima's
Nope.
gone.
No, I
understand.
Yeah.
Gone to the weird
100%
place.
understand.
But there was a friend and myself. It was just us two. One of the lighter stories. It was still scary, but the lighter of some. We asked it. You know, we were just kind of asking it questions and things like that, and really getting creeped out by it. And it was super quiet, and we were home alone. And because I think her parents probably would have had a cow. Had we were at her house, known that we, we're playing with that thing. So we were home alone, and we were in a room, and we were talking to it and asking questions and things, whatever it was that we thought was there. And we asked it to like show proof that it was really there. And we asked it to knock, and something actually knocked on her bedroom window, but there was nothing there.
Yeah, big note for me on that.
Yeah. I was like, and we just pretty much screamed and went running from the room, and that was a lighter tale.
Oh, I was gonna say, my sister told me a story about like them messing with it, and I think it had to have been The Exorcist that kind of really tempted me away from, or put it in me not to tempt any of that stuff, because it was like the flash scenes and stuff. Like, because I remember like when I heard about that, like they said like the flash scenes weren't actually there, and so you thought you were like seeing something you shouldn't be. And so like that's the kind of realm of things I don't mess with. I just don't want to open that Pandora's box.
See, at this point, I feel like I should buy you a Ouija board, but I like you too much.
Right.
I feel like I should buy one and mail it to your house.
You can get it from like Hasbro.com, I think. Seriously, I think so.
I don't know, like, do you burn it? Like, is that a good thing, or does that make it worse?
No, you you just hang on to it and just never use it. That's what happens. You're just stuck with it.
Yeah.
You can't throw it away. You can't burn it. You're just stuck with it.
So it's like Jumanji.
If you're in paranormal activity, you're pretty much just dead. There's nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's over.
Nothing.
Nice knowing you.
Yeah, but in terms of like creepiness in houses, like I give myself like I feel like a 30-day window. Like I always say I should put that in my contracts. Like if in 30 days I experience something like, Amityville horror-esque that, that's null and void on the purchase of the home.
If you hear anyone
so
whispering,
far,
get out in your ear, then reserve the right to
How
get
long
out.
did the whole Amityville thing, like how long did that take to manifest? Because I think that was longer than 30 days.
No, it was like 30 or 45 days by the time they left. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, they weren't even they weren't in the house very long at all. When that occurred. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always just like trying to like, if I just try to walk in with like a positive attitude. I'll burn some sage and and just think, if there was something there, I mean you no harm. And hopefully they mean me no harm. And usually things are fine. But
I do the same thing. I always kind of wonder like the stuff I watch on TV too. Like I try like at first like not to watch anything too like weird. Like unfortunately though, I started watching American Horror Story the first season.
oh, yes.
Like before I
You're
moved
like
out.
no porn for the first 30 days.
Yeah.
I always like think
I don't want to come off as some kind of weirdo to this ghost.
I'm like every once in a while,
event.
I'm like, I'm sorry for the things you've seen me do when I'm home alone. Sorry about that.
Looks over your shoulder. Ghost porn, you sick sickie.
Get off.
Yeah, at this point, that's probably what the ghost thinks. It's like, damn it, Shawn, again? Go to bed.
Psycho.
My goodness. It sounds like if I was to build so at this point, if I was to build the ideal like scary monster for this group, at this point it sounds like it would be a person in full on clown makeup that is also a ventriloquist, and the marionette is a cougar. It sounds like that kind of hits everybody's base.
You got to get a Ouija board in there somewhere. Maybe they're using.
That's how you summon it.
That's how you summon him.
Yeah.
You summon him with
It seems
a Ouija
like
board.
the Ouija is what freaks Shawn out the most. If we want to keep him up, somehow we got to get him to use it and then burn it or something.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put that on anyone.
No.
I'm gonna have to
Put that
start
evil on you, Ricky Bobby.
I'm going to start opening all my packages like on the porch now. If it doesn't come in the house, it doesn't exist, right? Is that how it works?
Just don't even bring it in your house. Don't use it. Don't touch it.
Milton Bradley.
You have to invite the Ouija board in.
That's true. Yep. Don't invite it in the house.
It's like a vampire.
Like, no, you stay out here.
They're not vampires.
Why is it sparkling? I don't feel threatened at all now. Well, this has been one of my favorite Brolloween so far. Does anybody else have anything they want to touch on, or are we good and spooked and ready to kind of crawl into bed and pull those covers over our head as we jump over the openings and run up the stairs?
Well, I'm good and creeped out, but if you're not good and creeped out, I'll and you may already know about it, but if I could provide a subreddit that if you really want to be creeped out and you're, not looking to get sleep, there is a subreddit called Let's Not Meet. Have you guys heard of that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I haven't seen
that. That one is terrible. Yes. It's people telling very terrible stories, like involving I think there was one where it was like a guy that was there was one story I saw. There was a guy. He was he was kind of down on his luck. He was staying with a couple roommates. One of the roommates was acting like really squirrely, and he thought the dude was just kind of weird or whatever. But he went to work. He got a call from his work, and the call was from a detective who said that his one of his roommates had killed the other roommate, and like wandered off. Like left the apartment after he killed him, called 911, and then it turns out that this guy had like a kill list in his room that had like family members on it and all this stuff. But this guy was on his kill list, and the only thing that saved him was the fact that he went to work.
Wow.
So he's like, detective, I was supposed to meet him for lunch. Should I still go? Or he said he was buying.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They're very scary little short stories, and they're real, or at least they're supposed to be real life encounter. I feel like I think most are. I don't know, but I'm sure some are thinking that that's too fake to be true or something. But it's supposed to be real life encounters with close encounters, or someone that was stalking them, or someone that came into their house and was just there unexpectedly, kind of the stuff that we've been talking about, that's that scares the hell out of you. And it's some pretty creepy stories. They even have a podcast for it now. A guy that was really, I can't remember the whole backstory, so I might get that wrong, but they have a podcast in it where a guy reads the stories, and it's called Let's Not Meet. And so that's really great. So you can read them on the subreddit, or you could listen to that podcast. I'm telling you, it creeped the hell out of me. I've listened to it enough that, if I'm home alone, I'm like constantly looking over my shoulder, or, it's enough to creep you out. So if you're needing to stay awake, go read that.
Sounds like a good podcast to put the noise canceling headphones in while you're laying in bed with all the lights off. And
yeah, don't put the noise canceling headphones on.
I made a list of just a few other things that creep me out. Watching TV and suddenly the action stops and whoever's on the screen turns and looks at you and just stares at you. And says points at you or something. The thought of bugs crawling in my ears at night.
While you're sleeping.
Yeah.
I have a fear of that. Yeah.
Closing a door and immediately hearing a knock on the other side, even though no one's there. That freaks me out. And climate change.
I had a feeling you were going to slip that in there somewhere.
Yep.
I have a recurring fear that I'm going to have a snake that crawls up into bed with me. I have an extreme fear of snakes, and I think Shawn, you and I share that.
We share that fear, yeah.
Tremendously, you and I. We've talked about that often in the past. So I'm always imagining that, I'm going to wake up and have something like lying next to me trying to keep warm. You hear those stories. I just saw a story earlier about a woman in Tennessee that happened to. Had a 3-foot snake, that got up in bed with her, and she has no clue how it got there. And
was it attached to a man? Oh,
no.
My fear is more like with the snake is like walking to the bathroom and you step on something, you feel it move and slither out of underneath your feet.
Oh God.
That's my fear.
Shawn, didn't you just find like a big snake skin out by your house?
There was a snake skin right by right in front of our porch. My son, it was taller than him.
You went from the burbs. Now you're out in the rural parts. What are you gonna do? You better get yourself some mothballs, my friend.
Yeah, so we found that big snake, and to freak you out even more, Rima, there's this old stump that's kind of old and rotted, and we were walking over like, what are all these strings doing on this thing? I shit you not, Rima, there was at least 24, probably 6-inch to a foot snake skins all over that thing. So there are at least 24 snakes that lived in that thing.
Nope.
I burned it down.
Burn it. Burn it.
I'm pretty sure it's the Hellmouth.
Oh my God, it's a gate to hell. No way. Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, I have that fear constantly, thinking that somehow where I'm at, that's going to happen.
Mine's the toilet too, like when I sit on the toilet at night. Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll coil up in there, right up like underneath where you can't see. You seen where they do that?
Mhm.
And yeah, no. And you'll see videos of where they're trying to come up out of toilets.
I've seen those at a Boy Scout camp. You know how it was kind of a nicer, like, it wasn't really like it was a bathroom, like concrete walls, but it was more like where, it was the outhouse style. So like, it went down into a big, barrel type thing. And some guy went in there to use it. And when he sat on the toilet, he heard a big sploosh because there's a big black snake in there that had fallen when he sat down.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's kind of like, I'm never pooping in those things ever again.
No.
Like, I will hold it.
No, I don't go in those things at all. No. Yikes. Well, I'm gonna sleep really well tonight. I can tell. This has really helped. Thanks, guys.
Welcome. That's what Brolloween's all about. I'm
Yeah, that is what it's all about.
I won't get any sleep. Rima won't get any sleep. Jason won't get any sleep. It's amazing. Richard's fine. He doesn't like.
Richard's gonna go.
Yeah,
back to
I'm all manly.
Yeah,
and
it's like,
whatnot.
Richard, what's your biggest fear? Love.
Getting close.
getting vulnerable.
Being vulnerable and intimate.
But I want to thank you both for jumping on again. I really appreciate
for
it.
asking
So
us. It
I
was
did
really
want to
fun.
give you guys the opportunity to kind of shout out your shows. So Rima, if you want to shout out all the fun stuff you're doing right now.
Oh gosh, what fun stuff are we doing right now? Well, right now on Strange Indeed, as I mentioned earlier, we're covering Midnight Mass, the new Mike Flanagan limited series on Netflix. If you want,
I need to watch
oh my
it.
gosh, I
It's
highly
great.
recommend it. It's fabulous.
I've heard it's so
It's
good.
really, really good. It's only 7 episodes, so we're getting.
Oh, that's not bad.
nice,
It's really
nice.
It's not-
you know.
It's not as creepy. I mean, it can be, but it's different than
It has
his other
its
stuff, but
moments.
it's good. Yeah.
It's not as
Mhm.
scary as like Hill House. If you've
Yeah.
seen Haunting of Hill House, Shawn, we covered that together, and you remember
I
how
have.
That was
Yeah.
creepy.
freaky that was and how scared we got over that. It's not quite that level. There are some moments, at least for me, in my opinion anyway. But it's not on
Sold.
the same level. But it is so well written, so well acted. It's just absolutely beautiful and typical Mike Flanagan, where he is like scaring you, but also like hitting you in the emotional feels all at the same time as he
Mhm.
does
Yeah.
so beautifully. So yeah, we're covering that right now. We're kind of in the middle of that. So yeah, if you're interested and want to check that out, that would be great. And then we're getting ready to cover Lock and Key with Jason. Jason's going to be joining us for that season 2.
Which is when Shawn left Strange Indeed.
Yes.
It is, yeah. That's coming up on 2 years now. As crazy as that
I'm
sounds.
excited for Lock and Key
I know, me
season
too.
2.
Yeah,
I'm
me
rewatching
too.
the first season now just to refresh.
Nice.
Yep. So yeah, that's what we've got going on.
And you're
right
going to
now.
be doing Dexter. I'm excited about
And
that.
yeah, we're going to be covering the Dexter revival because I've been a huge
Nice.
Dexter fan forever and ever. So I'm super excited. Maybe I shouldn't, have my hopes up too high for it, but I do, considering how they ended things. So yeah,
It's gotta be
that's
better
coming out
than
in
that.
November. Yeah, it can't.
Everybody says they're coming back and doing it justice. So
I'm hearing at least so far good things. So and they're really pumping it up and some positive things I'm hearing. So yeah, we're going to be covering that as well in November. So yeah, check that out.
So you guys doing that on Strange Indeed, or is that Jason you jumping on for that too? Or
Nope. I'll be a
It's
fan.
on Strange Indeed, but well, I don't know. I thought you said you wanted to jump on one.
Oh, yeah, I'm on
since
it. I'm
you
gonna be
don't
on it.
wanna- So you can guest if you'd like. If you don't.
I just decided.
Yeah. I said that you are, so it's going to happen. No, we'll open door to all you guys. For anything that we're covering. If you're really into it, and I'd love to have you guys on for anything that you're excited about and want to join. Doors always open.
And
Except at night.
Aw.
with knocking on the other side. My 2 podcasts, I kind of narrowed it down to 2. One is the Walking Dead cast, where I cover The Walking Dead and the spinoffs, which are not that great. But we're completionists. And then House Podcastica, I decided I'm just going to do every other show I'm interested in on there. So the next one coming up is we just finished What If, which I thought was fantastic.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Mwah.
so good. And better than I hoped it would be. And I had pretty good
Yes.
expectations for that. And then in December, both Book of Boba Fett, which is kind of taking the place of Mandalorian this year, which was freaking great. Mandalorian. We're covering that and Cobra Kai, which I think that's the series that I love the most right now of all the ones that I cover. If you haven't seen that, give it a shot. It's way better than it has any business being.
Yeah. I didn't think I would like it, but I really liked it.
Yeah, same boat.
I'm a big Karate Kid fan, but I thought that's going to suck, but I'm going to watch it anyway. And then it was great.
Oh, that first season at the end when they're in the tournament, like I get the feeling of like when I was like a 8-year-old watching the original, like when they're in that, like you just want to get up and start doing karate moves, even though you have no like reason to be doing it.
Because you're the best around and no one's ever going to bring you down, Shawn.
That's right. Well, again, I thank you guys very much. And I guess I will cue this up now for some Richard's closing thoughts.
Well, what did we learn? What did we learn today? We learned that once again, we learned that man is the real monster and sometimes clowns. We learned why you don't see Ronald McDonald anymore.
He's a serial killer.
And because he's a serial killer and he should be arrested. I'm looking at you, Willard Scott.
So if you have any information, call 1-800.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, what if, wait, here we go. What if like Ronald McDonald was a serial killer and that everybody that has been Ronald McDonald has been a serial killer and they just assume the role of Ronald McDonald.
Oh, man.
Which means that Willard Scott was the first.
And McDonald's has that McDonald's money, so they buried it so nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
Come on, Mike Flanagan. Get that on Netflix.
They're like, come on. They're talking to, like, CEO of McDonald's is talking to me. He's like, we've had to bury so many bodies.
Did one of you guys order me Grubhubs from McDonald's? It says it just showed up at my front door.
And there's a Ouija package from Hasbro here.
Yeah. 30 people just jumped out of a Prius to deliver my Grubhub.
All right. Well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping as we close it up. Visit our website, languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. And we always like to thank our two patrons, Wendy. Rima, you know Wendy.
Sure do.
And Aaron. Oh, you guys are the sweetest. And we hope we will never, ever send you a Ouija board in the mail.
Did you?
Or order you Grubhub.
You said you were going to send them some apple cider. Did you get that sent?
About that. Complications arose and mistakes were made.
I wouldn't part with apple cider. It's good stuff.
All right.
We've got some too. We had a local festival and got some.
Oh, get that. Put some Fireball on it. Oh, magic.
Don't sully it with whiskey.
After the weekend I've had, I don't want any more Fireball. But just apple cider is fine.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good, sir.
All right. Well, that's all the Bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard. And we have...
You're Rima. And I'm Jason.
Perfect.
I'm just like, what?
And remember, don't be a why.
Be
a why not. Thanks again, guys.
Get out. You're the bestest. Get off.
All right. That was fun.